my dressing gown has antlers. Whilst I'm not the biggest Christmas girly, I will always appreciate a holiday that is centered around staying indoors and eating lots of food. And I will always hold nothing but the greatest respects for our Christmas icons. I'm talking Bernard, the Nutcracker, and Martha May Whovier. Granted, there are many, many more, but those are the ones I had crushes on when I was a kid. I say that like I still don't.
I didn't ask you that.
And as there is no such thing as having too much nightwear, this week we'll be fulfilling my childhood dream of owning the most luxurious, classy, sipping a martini whilst handing you a glass spiked with Aqua Tofana robe I have ever seen in my life. Hands up if we're all obsessed with Martha May's wardrobe. Let's break this iconic look down. Obviously, we have the main beautiful blue fabric, for which I bought this. I did briefly consider making it out of the light blue velvet instead, and I came very close to pulling the trigger on that because I thought it would make it a much more winterous robe, and I could also double it as just a really fancy dramatic coat, but I decided to be traditional with it. Then, if you look at the close-ups of this robe from the film, you can see that the collar bit and the dramatic sleeves and whatnot is actually made out of feathers, not fur. I found the perfect match for this. Unfortunately, it was really, really expensive. I went with a faux fur instead. Granted, this was also expensive, but it didn't require me to sell my organs, so we'll call that a compromise. Despite already thinking I'm probably going to regret this, I have decided to not use a pattern. Looking at the construction, I think the bottom half, we can just go nice, easy, half circle construction. The sleeves look like bell sleeves, which I've never made before and I don't have a pattern for, but I feel like I can probably do that. The actual main bodice area, I feel like I've made so many bodices and I've got so many different patterns that there is bound to be something I've got that I can use to make that out of. I feel like we can piece this together on our own. We're gonna be brave. Having said that, we're gonna start with the skirt part first because that's gonna be easy. As I wanted the robe to have a very long dramatic train, I marked out 2 different radii for the front and the back and then blended them together. Okay, my living room is not big enough to show you this horizontally, but I really want to show you. She's gonna be so dramatic, I love her. I think I've definitely done the train on this far longer than it needed to be, but I figured I've got the fabric, so if I want to make it extra long and extra dramatic, then I'm going to. Now is the really fun part where I figure out what I'm doing pattern-wise for the sleeve and the bodice section. I've dug through my files. For the bodice, I have options of repurposing 50s Wonder or the Regency robe that I did, but that kind of feels like it might be too complicated and I'm feeling lazy, so I probably won't use this one, but it's an option. For the sleeves, I have blouse sleeve pattern that I can adjust or the Snow White sleeve pattern. I think I'll start by figuring out the sleeves first because they are definitely going to use more fabrics than the bodices. I've looked at my patterns and I've looked at the reference pictures and figured out what I need to do for the patterns and taken some measurements, and now I'm starting to feel really anxious I don't have enough fabric. Maybe I shouldn't have done the skirt so ridiculously long. I will tell you right now, there was not a single stage of making these sleeves that didn't confuse the hell out of me. This doesn't make sense. How do bell sleeves work? I think I can do this. I would love to give you a nice explanation of what I did here, but these sleeves fried my brain so badly, I recommend looking elsewhere on YouTube because I cannot help you. This should work. I don't feel confident about it. It feels small, but the measurements say it should work. This is definitely one of those times where I either wish I had the mental discipline to make a mock-up first, or I just bought a pattern like I should have. I knew I would regret it. That's probably something, right? I figured it would be a lot easier to do the bodice panels up here on the cutting board rather than on the floor downstairs. I am going to use my 50s Wonder bodice. I'm not going to use the centre front panel. I'm just going to take the side front panel and extend it so they can join in the middle. I also joined the two back panels together when I cut out the fabric as well. Yeah, that'll work. It's like a little cape. There is a lot of excess fabric on this entire strip here, completely unnecessary. Even then, I'm gonna have to go into it more and add darts in to actually shape it to make it more form-fitting. I don't know why I always use the Wonder Pan, because I know that that thing is too big for me. Every time I use it, I have ridiculous amounts of excess that I have to get rid of. Why do I keep that thing? That aside, I think this is gonna work pretty cool. I think I've left loads of excess here because it's the type of rope in the film. It joins at the middle, it doesn't wrap around, but I've left loads of excess just to make sure that I have what I need to attach the fur to, because I can cut extra off, but I cannot put extra on. I mean, I could sew extra panels on, but that would be a lot of effort that I don't want to do. I turned it inside out and pinned a buttload of darts in it to fit me better. Then I ran out of pins because over half of them are still in my alphabet bodice. I tried scavenging the floor for some because there's usually loads, but no luck. Luckily, I did have an unopened box that somebody gave me. They were so unbelievably sharp that I used them over my old ones for the rest of the project. As we are working with another silk fabric, I'm finally going to test out my walking foot that I bought a couple of weeks ago. Months ago at this point, actually. I have watched a quick YouTube just to figure out how these work and how I attach it, and it seems simple enough. Let's test it on a sample and see if it's kind to me. Please be kind to me. Oh, that worked beautifully. I'm so freaking happy. I wish I had this a couple of months ago. After I finished stitching the bodice, I assembled the bell sleeves too. This is already starting to feel really dramatic, especially with the sleeves. They're not as voluminous as I would have wanted them to be, but that's definitely because I didn't have enough fabric because I used way too much on the skirt. I just need to quickly stitch the skirt together and then we'll get all of these seams pressed and ironed and we'll start joining the pieces together. With all of my seams freshly pressed, I pinned the bodice section to the skirt using my fancy new sharp pins. They're so colourful, I want more. Sewing these together was really not fun. I mean, thank God I had the walking foot, but even with that, I felt like I was just constantly adjusting it to lie flat. The base is now complete. I have just twisted myself in the train. It is now time to add the drama, and by that I mean the faux fur. These are so comically long, I love it. Because I want this to look as amazing as I can possibly get it, I do have a rough plan in my head to stuff the fur, which sounds weird. In my head, that's going to give me as much volume as possible, because if we take a look at the reference photos, the feathers that are around the sleeves and around the collar especially, they are huge. There is so much volume there that if I just sew the faux fur I've got onto these, that will just fall pretty flat in comparison. So I want that round, puffed up kind of look. My logic is if I sew on the fur and then I just sneak some stuffing in there just to poof it all up, then that should work. I feel like that should work. The first step of the day is going to be cutting up all of the fur. Before we get too deep back into the Christmas mojo, allow me to switch gears for a moment. Some might argue that the spooky season has passed. They would be wrong. Spooky is a lifestyle suitable for every season, and to that end, I have recently formed a partnership with Upbeat to create a spooky storytelling playlist on their platform. The fun I had making this playlist. For context, Upbeat are a really amazing platform used by lots of creators for music and sound effects. I've used Upbeat since the very start of my channel. I spent hours listening to all of the soundtracks, and by the time I finished, I was just sat in a pitch black room on my laptop. Probably wasn't the best way to do it, because some of those soundtracks genuinely get a little bit scary. I really love how the playlist came out. It has a lot of the tracks that I've used on this channel before, a lot of the ones you guys have asked me about before. I feel like it's got a really good balance of quirky, spooky, fun Halloween vibes, as well as sinister, haunted, kind of terrifying vibes. I'll put a link to the playlist down in the description if anybody wants to go check it out. Full disclosure, this is an affiliate link. I really do thoroughly recommend Upbeat to any creators out there, especially ones who are starting out. They had a really great interface, they had really great soundtracks, and most importantly for me at the time, they had a free tier where I could sign up and get free downloads every month, copyright free to use on my channel, and I only actually started paying once I was more confident in my channel that it was worth the investment. If anybody has any questions about this kind of stuff, seriously, it's absolutely fine if you want to drop me a comment or a message, because I'm always happy to chat with people. And on that note, let's get back to the project. Having done all of my impressive maths, I know I needed to cut 3 lengths 20 centimeters wide for the skirt, and then a 50 centimeter wide panel for the collar and the sleeves. Decided that it is probably going to be easier to get the fur on with it on the mannequin. I'm going to start by trying to figure out the collar and the cuffs first, and then I'll do the rest of the front drop down and all around the skirt afterwards, because I think it's important that these areas get the right amount and right volume first, because they are far more statement to the overall result. Also, I'm very surprised by how clean it was to cut that fur. I fully expected it to look like I'd just massacred a polar bear, but the floor is completely clear. I'm impressed. I spoke way too soon with that statement. Once I was actually handling the fur, it went everywhere. Pretty sure I drank some of it in my hot chocolate. For the collar, I put some darts inside to help it curve around the neck smoother, and cut away some fabric on the front so that it would have a nicer shape coming down the bodice. I know I said I was going to do the sleeves, but I'm finding them really confusing, so I'm going to procrastinate for a little bit and do all around the skirt instead. I pinned myself to it. I suppose I should just be grateful it wasn't my skin this time. I put it through my finger. I decided to get the collar sewn together next, starting with getting all of the darts sewn in. This was the delightful part of the project where I finally had a use for the pillows I've hoarded for the past 2 years.
Vindication!
Although if I'm being completely honest with you, I barely used a quarter of one of them. It didn't even really make a dent. And this is when I realised the robe would double as a neck pillow. For the sleeves, I used the blue as a pattern to cut out the fur panels. I didn't want the fur to lay flat on the sleeve, so I made 2 layers to sew together so I could fill the inside. This also meant the inside of the sleeve would be fur too, as it is visible on bell sleeves. Doing this process, I realised I didn't need the bottom half of the blue sleeves anymore, so I was going to have to cut them off, which I put off doing and decided to sew the fur together first. I decided to compare a stuffed sleeve versus an unstuffed sleeve to see which one was better. I quickly realised I had seriously overfilled it like an excited kid at Build-A-Bear. After some movement tests, I still couldn't really pick and decided to sleep on it instead. I love it so much. The collar is a complete piece and it just needs sewing onto the actual dressing gown. Length of it has first stitch to it. I still need to stuff that and then seal it up, which is probably going to be one of the last steps that I do. The sleeves, very grateful I actually managed to figure something out for these. I left it off having made the giant Bridgerton style poofs. I decided that these look best when they're lightly stuffed, so that's what I'm going to do. I feel like I'm forgetting about something. Oh, fastening. I very quickly and very lazily put in some hook and eye tape. Just gonna move you. Just from the top of it all the way down to about the belly button. Then 1, it'll be quick. 2, it'll be a good fastening to keep the bodice fitted, but not like a zip or anything. That's gonna very clearly get tangled in all of the fur. And it's also a lot less effort than doing buttons, so I think the hook and eye is the best way to go for this. I am so excited to have this finished though. I'm definitely looking forward to wearing it over Christmas, and between having Martha's robe and I now also have Ella Frell's necklace, which is just all of my childhood dreams are coming true. I also just want to say thank you to everybody from my Instagram stories who peer pressured me into actually going back to the antique shop to buy this. It is my new favorite possession. I have dreamed of having Ella Frell's necklace ever since I first watched that film as a very wee child. fastening complete, I slapped back to the sleeves and finally accepted I had to cut the ends off. I'm keeping them and I'm hoping I can use them for something else in the future one day. I then pinned and stitched the fur end on. I also decided that lightly stuffed was the best way to go as it gave them a more rounded look without making it too stiff. I'm so glad that actually worked because pretty much every single stage of these sleeves has felt like trying to do rocket science. The sleeves are on, which feels amazing to have these finished, even if they don't look the best. I'm now moving on to the collar, and I realized that when I place it on and I try and place it exactly where it's going to be sewn down, this side reaches what's already on the gown. This side, on the other hand, they like barely just about touch, but obviously you need a little bit of overlap to actually sew them together, so I might have to make a little patch of fur, essentially like a plaster, just to join these two together, which I cannot tell you how much I don't want to have to do that, but I don't really think I get a choice. I know it's fur, but you can still only hide so much. I'm gonna go make a hot chocolate, and then when I come back up, we're gonna get this stitched on, which just leaves stuffing and sewing sealed the edging, and then it's going to be finished and I get to spend my Christmas frolicking around in it. It's going to be good. This thing is so comfy and so warm, and oh my god. I feel like I'm just being cuddled by a teddy bear. Collar is done. I love it. All I need to do now is just deal with the edging and just stuff it gently and seal it up. This is everything I dreamed it would be. Have to admit, when I was putting this on, I twisted the sleeve a little bit and I panicked and thought I'd just sewn the ends on backwards. I really did not need to deal with that tonight, so I'm very glad that wasn't the case. This thing is the best. In preparation for the shoot tomorrow, I put my hair in curlers before spending the night stitching the last little bit. Because of the position of the camera, my arm looks absolutely mental in this clip, so I'm going to go ahead and take us straight to the results. This thing is amazing. It is like having a dressing gown that is also a neck pillow. It is so comfortable, surprisingly warm, and only about 70% of the way through the results shoot did I realize that I left all of the pins going down all of the side. I did sew it shut, I just forgot to take the pins out afterwards. It's also just very anxiety friendly too. This is so calming. I have every intention of wearing this over Christmas. I was going to say so much fun making it, but actually I really hated the fur. I was completely wrong when I said that it didn't go everywhere, because it did go everywhere. The fur is on everything now. Luckily it doesn't shed off the finished thing, it's just from where all the fabric was cut, it just kept coming off all of the ends. I have a lot of cleanup work to do after this project. The original plan was to shoot this in front of a giant Christmas tree outside, but the rain just would not stop. In the end, we decided to go to my in-laws' house because they have Christmas decorations up and we don't. I just stabbed myself with one of those pins. That really hurt. It is amazing I didn't get pricked once during the results shoot. As always, thank you so much for watching along. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, however you celebrate. I am still working on Alphaba. I realize I've been saying that for a comically long time now. She is on the last little legs and I love her so freaking much. I probably shouldn't commit to saying this out loud. If all goes well, Alphaba should be up by New Year. I hope. No, I'm gonna say it. She'll be up by New Year. I'm determined. We are getting her finished. And she's gonna be so freaking cool when she is. Okay, that is everything from me. I'm gonna go eat food and snuggle up in my new cozy robe. I will see you all at the end of the year. It's actually getting pretty warm in this dressing room. I've never been so tongue-tied in my entire life. So much drama. I was taking all of the pins out of the dress and it would appear that I have permanently sewn one inside of it. I guess that's just staying there forever now.